Imagine that the collective world's pot is boiling. So it's either going to be a major release, which is amazing because then the collective boiling is going to go down on that account, or it's going to be repressed more, but that's just going to go so crazy obvious that eventually many of those people will really look at themselves too, because I'm just screaming and crazy. But first, that has to really come to light for a while. So see that as March. The collective boiling is so big. I want to talk to you about March, but more I want to talk to you about what I see and believe is coming to the surface undeniably in March, and that's shame. Shame is coming to the surface for all of you and for me and for the world. As you meditate, as you listen to silence, you might notice that the voices that you have, I'm going to say some of the sentences and see if these sentences just trigger you. Just see if any of these sentences trigger you. If you just hear these sentences, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Right? Like, I know it's a terrible thing to say, but imagine if you felt triggered from that. When will you ever get this? Why don't you understand? Don't you get anything? Feel these sentences, right? Feel free to share yours. I actually asked some people this morning to text me a few of the sentences they've heard. Let's see, I've heard, what is wrong with you? You don't understand how the world works. You're delusional. You have no idea what you're talking about ever. If you actually think that way, then you're just as stupid as everyone else. No surprise that didn't work out. I should have bet on it. Why would you do that? Feel free to write any here, and also feel free to write some out. Write some out on a piece of paper. The ones that you really hate, right? There's a reason we're going to do it. You always get it wrong. I'm reading some of yours now. You're in denial. You're crazy. Notice as you write it down that it might even just bring up some emotions for you. Pull yourself together. Stop making a scene. How about this one? People will see, people can hear you, right? What will people think of us if we carry on like this? How about, what did I do to deserve a kid like you? Or you're crazy. I want you to also notice if you say these things to you. Like, are these sentences in your body? Why can't I ever do it right? It's almost like you're something outside of that voice saying it about you. Why do I always do this? I never get it. One thing I want to offer is, when you hear yourself shaming you, one of the things I've been doing with people lately is putting the spotlight on the shamer. So I bring the shamer out, right? And we hear the shamer talking. And instead of the shamer saying, why do I always do it wrong? We hear the shamer say it like it's talking to a third person, right? So they'll be like, I'm worried I'll get it wrong. And I'll say, could you bring that shamer out, please? Like, I always see the shamer kind of peeking out of the bushes just to insult you and then run back, right? So I said, bring the shamer out. And then I have this person sitting there with their inner child in the shamer. So I'm like, could you tell me what's wrong? And then they make the shamer say, she's never going to get it. She always screws up. And I just let the shamer keep going, right? She never gets this. She doesn't understand it. She's so stupid, right? And then I stay on the shamer, because one of the things the shamer is totally scared of is the spotlight. So I asked the shamer after a while, like, listen to your shamer and bring it out. It's the opposite of a Roxette song. Listen to your shamer when it's shitting on you. So if you bring that shamer out and then you finally just ask this, I'm going to ask your shamer something. Bring that shamer out for a second. Let the shamer talk about your inner child in third person, right? Like, if you just let the shamer say, she never gets it right, or he's always failing, or he's just such a failure, he never gets this, right? And then I'm going to ask that shamer that's saying these sentences. Okay. Are you ready? Let them be heard for a minute. Hey, shamer, what are you so scared of? I just want to point out that the shamer is scared of something too. Because we look at that voice of shaming as not scared. We just look at it as this angry, devilly, mad thing, but we don't understand that energy is actually just horrified, but it's so calcified in its horrified. It doesn't know about the fear. It's just preventing what it's scared of. So I want you to know, no one is more scared than the shamer inside your body. Even if you got that shamer from your parents, that's just their fear, and they got it from their parents. Someone wrote, the shamer is scared to be found out. I've heard that 3 times this week. It's scared of being found out. So there's something inside the shamer that it's protecting from the light of love. And what if we let the shamer get found out? Like, we see you, shamer. What if we create a compassion for the shamer, for the inner child of the shamer? And weirdly, this last week, I have noticed more shaming coming to light than I've ever seen in all my teaching, all my work, inside myself, with other people. I can't tell you how much I'm seeing it. Now, there's some people who are open to looking at the shame. They're just holding this open space. There's some people who are unconsciously shaming themselves for shame. So imagine you already have, all of us have different levels in our body of shame. Like, you just have it sitting there. Now, if you're looking at the shame and being like, how do I get over this? You're shaming it. So there's a difference between shaming the shame and accepting the shame. And one of the things life is trying to get you to do is merge with the now and find a level of unconditional love that's so big that it holds love for the shame versus shames the shame. See, this energy is in the body, period. It's not coming out through your shame. It's so tired of being shamed. So it stores shame, and then you look at it with shame. When am I going to get over this? Why don't I ever understand this? I've done this work forever. How much longer till I'm there? Imagine saying to your child, how much longer till you're there? When are we done with you? That's what the energy in your body's hearing. And if we understand that shaming voice is just scared, it's scared of being found out. It's scared of being unloved. And we understand that right now, there's also this now that you can merge with through meditation, patience, acceptance, that can be there for the buried shame that's in your body. So there's some people who are holding a space of love for the shame. And those people are going to gently, through love and patience, when it feels seen enough, kind of release some of the shame, some of the pressure, right? There's some people who are shaming their own shame. And then there's also people who won't even look at their shame. And they're the ones protecting and keeping the shame in full denial that it's there. They're the people who right now are the loudest in the world. The ones that are shaming everyone else. The ones that are massively against some other side. The ones that are screaming everything's wrong with everyone else. And they don't have any interest in looking down at that. It's most of our parents, right? A lot of our parents, right? They won't, it's literally everything is just louder than ever now. They're just like, what is wrong with you to everyone else? They're just screaming, what the hell is wrong? You always do this. Everything is wrong with you. So imagine that what March is some people releasing shame, some people seeing their own shame and shaming it louder which they're closer to releasing it than the third group. And then the third group of people is people that won't even look below the neck at anything in the body, keeps all the focus on the outside because they're so overloaded with shame that just even looking at it for a second would be scary. So we are going to scream everywhere to the outside of the world, right? We're going to shame the shit out of everything else. We're going to become the loudest group of people in the world because everything is wrong with everyone else and there's nothing wrong with me. That's the three groups. So I want to offer you to be in the first group that can hear the shame, understand it's supposed to be there because it is, brings a new level of compassion to it, and releases it. Kathy G said, yep, that just happened with someone last week. So sad. So do you hear the kind of judgment on it? Right? In other words, it could be that happened with someone last week. It's all fine. In fact, I want to offer you to not even feel any judgment for the people in the third group. Because what would they need to be able to really see this? Compassion. They're used to being shamed. So if we shame them, then at the same time, they have something to fight back against or run from or not even talk to, right? So we're here to open a level of compassion for the shame in our body, also for the people who are shaming the shamer, and also for the people who won't look into this, that don't want anything to do with themselves. They're hurting so much. Those parents that we know that grew up in a different time that didn't look at their inner stuff are hurting so much. So how do we do that? We listen to the now more than our shamer of our shame. We listen to the now. We don't try to get over the shame. We instead hold a compassion for the shame. So imagine that March is 3 different pots. They're all boiling. The first group is taking the lid off the pot, steam, and because the lid's off, the steam is releasing and the boiling kind of slows down. The second group is shaming the pot, so it's putting more boiling water and kind of judging it and like, when will you cool down? But it's adding boiling water to the boiling water. And the third group is keeping the lid on. There's no pot. There's no pot. You can see the eyes, and I'm not judging. You can see it in their eyes. Just what is wrong with that's the third group, right? But imagine if the first group demonstrated the release of their shame. And we had some pots that were released. Can you feel the collective boiling? Can you feel that? It's impossible for you not to feel the collective of all of the planet boiling. So if you're in this group, if you're doing this work, we're going to be in that wave of people that cool down the actual boil versus repress the boil. So many people here are meditating every day. Thank you for doing that. It's an incredible service to humanity because you're creating space for the release. You're going to see the world through the released shame's eyes, through love. And you're going to not be triggered nearly as much by other people outside of you who are boiling because you're on the other side of it. Do you understand what I'm saying? You won't be triggered by your parents or people that are shaming you nearly as much if you have transcended the shame that's in your body. So they're kind of throwing stuff at nothing. And they're getting back compassion, which helps them release what's stuck in their body. This is why doing this work right now is the most important thing you can do, because people are going to be throwing shame at you. But if your shame is released through you, you're not going to be hurt by it. And they might end up kind of falling over on themselves and seeing themselves That's not something you can do while repressing the shame. And no, everything's fine. The energies are still talking, even if it's not conscious. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like the energies are still, at the same time, the energies are talking. So the energies in the body unconsciously can see the shame in the other body, and it can shame it. And in the energy in our body that isn't seen can easily be shamed by other people. Even if you're aware of the shame and you're doing this work, it's once it's truly transcended. There's many ways it could be transcended. My way is crying, but it only shows up when I've really looked at the core of that shame. And there's still more in here. There's still more in here, but there's also been a ton that's been released. Take a deep breath in. Michelle D says, this feels too much. Deep breath in. You can all handle what I'm saying right now if you connect to the now. If you try to overcome what you have going on inside, right, then it's the shame trying to get fixed by the shame. Your doer comes from shame. That energy of what do I do? That energy of I got to do something, believe it or not, is the protection of shame. I got to do something so I'm not shamed. I got to do something so I'm not unworthy or a piece of shit or anything like that. All that I got to do. I'm not saying we won't do, but you'll do what calls to you from a full body and desire to do because it's a new thing that's compassion and joy in your body versus doing to avoid stuff that's inside. I was thinking the other day how weird it is that everything we're scared of is actually inside. Do you know that? Everything you're scared of is inside. You're more scared of the stuff inside coming out. You think it's outside. You ever sit at night and you're just in your room alone and you just feel scared? Nothing's happening. But it's like you got this vulnerability with yourself. And it's just scary. I don't know if anyone has that. I've had that many times. You're like, no one's coming into the house. There's no one shooting at me. There's nothing. I just am like scared to go pee for some reason. That's in your body. You're scared of what's in your body. Because what's in your body, when it comes to light, will kill the false you that you think you are. Because the you that you think you are is actually here to keep the shame in. You've created an identity of a person that's here to keep the shame in. Well, imagine that the collective world's pot is boiling. So it's either going to be a major release, which is amazing because then the collective boiling is going to go down on that account, or it's going to be repressed more, but that's just going to go so crazy obvious that eventually many of those people will really look at themselves too, because it's just, I'm just screaming and crazy. But first that has to really come to light for a while. So see that as March. The collective boiling is so big. And if you're doing this work, you're going to be right on the cutting edge of bringing now, compassion, listening. Don't do things that cover the shame up, right? Don't get too addicted to social media. Don't get too all over Netflix. Don't get too, what do I do? Don't go out with too many people that you deep down don't want to do it. Those are all things that you're doing to stop the shame from coming out. This is a great time right now. I mean, one of the great things about 2020 and beyond was it took away a lot of those things from you. And now you have the option without even feeling any guilt about it to just go inward, just become introverted for a minute. Not repressed introverted, like be with what's here fully in your body. I believe that 2022 could be really magical if you have an understanding of what's going on and do the constant work of really being in surrender and letting the universe remove from your body what you're not. Join me and my team for an insane, powerful 2-day event, and join us on the Absolutely Everything Pass. Join a community of people who are in the same work as you. I can't wait to see you there.